times in his rhymes, cause his memories. We running through New York, so you never leave. Strap my lungs, then we puffin' through with that right. But giving them some stories, they come back like manic this, manic that, why you crawling to me? The how we gonna...
Okay folks, welcome back to the channel. So what we're going to go ahead and do today is we're going to do the what to look for when buying a Mini Cooper S R53, and it's going to be done on the car that you guys have known I've been working on. And as you guys know, when I bought this car it was a complete stay and it needed quite a bit of work. So what we're going to do is go over all the things and all the common problems on this car and what has to be changed if you're planning to buy them. Now I know a lot of people are planning to buy these now because they're becoming classics. The R53 is a good solid engine inside it, the supercharged engine which can handle the power better than the R56. But it also can have its problems and its issues as it was built in the era with the E46, which it suffers from a lot of rust. So we're just going to go over all the issues on this car and I'm going to show you what you need to look for when buying a R53. Okay guys, so as you'll see here, this is my Mini Cooper S R53. Obviously it wasn't really mainly in a lot of the videos because obviously it's been getting repaired, but as you can see here it's quite in very good condition. But what I come to realise when I bought this car is a lot of people cared more about the bodywork than the actual car itself, which was quite disappointing. So that being said, I'm going to go over now all the common problems on this car that do reflect the issues on any R53, and anyone who's going to buy it is going to suffer with these problems. It's a common problem across them all, so we're just going to go over them. So the first one you're going to want to look for straight away is the exhaust. Now as you see, my exhaust has been changed to a Durenza Performance exhaust. Now the reason that's been done is because the rear back boxes on these end up rusting and rotting, so you need to change them. So if you're looking to buy one, do not be put off if it's got a performance exhaust, because it's actually normal. The reason people put that and the reason we put stainless steel is because they rot, and these cars suffer with a lot of rust. BMW 46s was built in the era with that, and BMW didn't do their chassis well, so they do suffer with rust. The next one underneath will be the brake lines, the steel brake lines that run from the ABS module. They like to rot, which is another common problem as well on the BMs as well. The rear ones, they always rot from the salt on the road, so if you're planning to buy one, be careful of that as well. The brake hoses on these, the rear brake hoses, the perils, they like to rot. Another common problem on them. I've sorted all these luckily and there haven't been an issue. The next one on these is the boot. Like I say, it likes to get water in the third brake light here. The third brake light cover can leak the seal inside and leak water straight into your boot and cause it to be damp, so be aware of that. If you're looking to buy one of these, make sure it doesn't have that issue, because it gets damp and it'll get water in the rear. You don't want to cover your boot in and your battery in water, so make sure that ain't leaking. You usually can tell when you take it for a car wash or jet wash, you'll know if it's leaking, like I did with this one. You'll also notice as well the tires on these. Now people usually tend to do tires on these, but I know there's a lot of them that end up coming with ball tires, and that's purely because people don't want to spend the money on these cars. And as you'll see here, I've upgraded all the brakes on this car. The brakes are literally brand new. We've done all the brakes itself, so they're actually brand new on here. As you'll see, when I got the car, they're quite scored, quite pitted and quite damaged, so I had to overhaul the whole braking system on this car, which is what I've done, and it's come out amazing. The car now stops the way it should and it doesn't have no issues, which I'm very pleased with. You also see here the new brake discs which are on. Like I say, I did them all. We done the brake pads, I did everything that was needed on this car, because it had a problem where nobody changed the brake disc and the people had just been changing the brake pads but never the disc. So I rectified that and we sorted that, and now it's got brand new discs and pads all over. The next common issue you're going to look for is obviously the bumpers. Now when people take these bumpers off on these cars to do any kind of servicing, which you have to, they end up forgetting to put the bumper back in alignment and the bonnet doesn't shut properly. Now I've been noticing this since I've had this car. It's been a common issue, and you've got to be careful of that as well, because the bumper can end up sagging, or if they break the clips that go underneath for the screws, the Torx bolts, that can cause your bumper not to sit properly either, so be aware of that. The next thing on these guys you have to be aware of is the suspension itself, because these sit very low down and they've got very tight handling. They're run by electric power steering pump and also a fan. You have to be aware on these that the suspension on these are very stiff, and going over potholes it feels like you just smashed the car apart because of how stiff the suspension is on these. So that's another thing you have to be aware of, that when you take it out for a test drive, make sure the suspension is good on these. Like I say, there is a lot of common problems. It's just the era of the car, and as they're getting older there'll become a lot of more issues. Talking of the interior, I just want to speak about the interior quickly now. As you'll see here, the interior is quite in good condition. Everything works the way it should. The gearbox, now if you get these cars from 2003 or 2000 up to 2004, they're a 5-speed gearbox. they're the ones you're going to want to avoid. You're going to want to get the ones from 2005 and 2006 with a 6-speed get drag gearbox. It's the one that everyone's knows very well. Try and avoid the automatic transmission because they're plagued in issues. Don't get an automatic one. The manual ones are the best and deliver more power. Also, guys, I've seen a lot of people changing their clocks to the chrono ones. It's another thing you have to be aware of. If you're planning to change these over to the chrono ones, you will have a tamper dot and mileage manipulation, which has to be cleared, and it has to be also be coded to your car. Like I say, it's not something many people can do. Obviously, I can do it. I'm planning to do it on this car. But if you're not aware of it, you cannot just change over because it has the mileage from the previous vehicle. You need to get that cleared before you can use it on your vehicle and then recode it back to the car. So be aware of that. Another thing, guys, is that obviously you just want to check all the seats because obviously, as you see, they're like half leather, but you know, these seats are really comfortable in this car. As I said, you know, coming from a BM, I took this for 700 miles and you know, it felt more comfortable with my 5 Series. I never thought a little car like this could be more comfortable, but it really was. It was a lot more comfortable than I thought it was going to be. You just want to mainly check all the main little things. There's not many things on this car to really check. There's not many electronic components. It's just normal, like your windows, your switches, as I say, your stalks, and make sure all the lights work. Obviously, it's got xenons, which means most Coupe S's. You want to make sure all the door cards are in place as well, because otherwise they'll leak water. As you see, they've got like a plasticky feel. They're not like built like the R56 version. They're quite plasticky, so you want to be aware of that as well. You also want to be aware of that your xenons are working, because a lot of people won't replace the bulbs in them because of the price of them. So be aware of that as well, that you might get ones where the bulbs ain't been replaced. It's going to be common because people don't want to spend the money on them bulbs to replace them. So guys, like I say, the majority of the work on this car has been done, so I'm going to go over now over the engine side and show you what you need to look for on the engine. There really isn't much on the body. You just want to make sure as well that when you come to view these, that as you see here, the windows, you want to make sure when they drop, because obviously they're 2-door, that they're going back up, because that's a lot of problem. A lot of people, what they'll do is not shut the window properly and it won't go back up to the side. What happens is people don't shut the window fully to the top where it can shut itself, where it auto drops and auto heightens, and what happens is the car doesn't auto heighten, then water gets in and soaks the whole of your interior. So you need to be aware of that, if you're going to drop the window down, make sure you heighten it fully up and hold it until the top way it shuts. Sometimes these stop working, so you have to be aware of that as well. It's common on coupes, so something you have to be aware of. Just make sure if it ain't dropping, you get it sorted ASAP, and you find out why, because it's going to be a major problem if you ever want to get the car washed and you get water inside your interior. So coming over to the engine side, guys, and as you'll see here, I've got an induction kit, a bigger intercooler, upgraded ignition coils, basically everything upgraded on this car. Now, obviously, as you guys will know, when I bought this car had been very abused, and I've changed nearly everything on this car that was ever needed to be changed, or if it was a common problem. So the first thing we're going to go over, which is a common problem, many people probably already know, this is the coolant expansion tank. They crack, they leak, and end up frying your head gasket on this car. So something you have to be aware of, and make sure you check it when you go and buy one of these, and if it's cracked, you get it replaced immediately. Sometimes the cap won't hold pressure. If that's not holding pressure, that can cause head gasket failure as well, so be aware of that. The next thing on these is the valve cover leaking. The valve covers on these like to leak, and when they leak, they'll run oil down the back and you'll smell like a burning oil smell. This one was, and I changed it, so be aware of that. The next thing on these is the oil filter housing and the oil cooler, which sits right down here, which I changed over also. When the oil cooler likes to leak oil, it will leak down here and it will cause an oil leak and cause a dirty smell of oil in the engine bay. Like I said, I've changed all that as well for new gaskets. We also changed the oil filter housing gasket. Now it's all driving perfect. There's no smell of oil burning. Everything is just absolutely perfect, and I literally can't fault the car. But they do leak, and they tend to leak around 30,000–40,000 miles, and it's something that is quite easy now after I've done it. It's a very easy job to get to and very easy to work on as well. The oil cooler, you can reach in through the footwell here after taking that off, and the oil filter housing you can get to from the top here. It's a very easy job, and it's something I advise doing. If you're planning to buy one of these, do it immediately. It will be leaking. It's a common issue. The next one on these is obviously the coolant hoses. Make sure and be careful about them. You guys will probably know there's a bleed screw right here. There's also a bleed screw right down there near the thermostat. It's an 8mm bolt. I don't think you'll probably be able to see on the camera, but it sits on top of one of the piping, so you want to be careful that it goes to the thermostat, and that one you use to bleed the system as well. Now, as you guys will probably see here, I've got a different induction kit, and that's purely because the normal airbox on these, the screws on them like to break, and I just thought at the end of the day, where I've got the uprated intercooler and induction kit goes perfect along with it. Now I will say I haven't been getting no heat soak with this intake in here at all, as people thought I would, but I haven't. I've got no heat soak whatsoever. The car still runs cool, the pipe is still running perfect. There's been no issues with this car whatsoever. Now you're probably seeing here that I've got an uprated intercooler. That's because obviously I've got a 19% pulley, which you'll see right down there. That's the 19% pulley, and like I say, don't be scared to put this on. If you're going to be using it as your daily driver, a 19% pulley is actually perfect for you. You do not need anything else. Just go and put on a 90. It's down to personal preference. I prefer the power down, low down, because obviously when you're driving it daily, you're going to want the power where you need it most, which is always in and out of gears, which is low down. So I prefer the power. 90% gives the power low down, where 17-15 gives it more higher up. If you're going to be using that for track though, I would advise not to put that on, because the RPM, you're spinning the supercharger way too fast for that pulley, so I'd advise not getting that. The next one on these is the supercharger, which, as you guys know, bolts down there. Now that's a common problem that needs to be serviced. People say it has to be serviced, but let me assure you, I took this one off and it was still full of oil. The oil still looked clean and fresh as day one. I don't believe this has ever been serviced, because it's a big job. If someone's going to spend 600 to find out it's already been serviced, would be a shame. I've already done it now, and the car drives absolutely amazing. The oil is fully done, and like I said, I can't fault the car. I've done that. It is a common issue and it's something that has to be addressed. The pulley doesn't have to, but I advise if you're going to do supercharger pulley, take the old supercharger pulley off and just put on a Cavs pulley or whatever else, an auto pulley if need be. The next one you guys are going to want to be aware of as well is the crank position sensor O-ring. Now they like to leak. I did buy an OEM one from BMW and I changed it over. Now it will sit just above the sump. When you get the front of the engine off, you can easily access it. It's right there, one 10mm bolt, and it comes straight off, and you just replace the O-ring, which I did as well on this car, because it was leaking oil really bad and it had completely seized up to the point it went all hard when I took it out, so I replaced that as well. It's a common issue, and it's something that you must address. Now if you are planning to run 17-15% or 90% pulley, make sure you change your plugs to NGK, Erdium or Bosch Super 4, which can run colder, because you've got to remember, as you're forcing more air from the supercharger, it's going to be a lot more hot air, so the spark plugs ain't going to be able to burn. So you've got to make sure you get your mixture right and you do it properly. I also upgraded the ignition coils, as you see here, to a performance one, and that's purely because I wanted the car to run perfect, because I didn't know how long they had been on. Secondly, I didn't want it to fail later on down the line. So that's why I ended up replacing it for a performance ignition coils. They were about £100 and they didn't cost much, and the intercooler was about £150. The induction kit was £130, but I ended up getting sponsored, so they gave me the money back on that as well, which wasn't too bad. MTC again, they ended up sending me all this, which was a good thing of them. And like I say, there isn't many bits they provide for a Mini Cooper, but like I say, what they did have, they sent me, and the car looks absolutely amazing. Like I say, guys, you're going to want to be careful with this coolant hose as well that runs from the water pump down to the lower radiator hose, because that one, it can be a bit fiddly to get back on. These cars are very, very easy to work on. You know, when I first worked on it, I thought it would be a problem, but after working on it, this car has actually turned out to be actually a good car all in all. The next one you're going to be aware of is the crankcase breather right here. Now, if that goes, that will cause excess vacuum to go back into the crankcase and not pop in your valve cover. So something you need to be aware of if yours is failing, to make sure you change that, because it can cause your car to run rough and also not pull the right amount of air into from the crankcase back into from vacuum. It works the same as a BMW. It's a crankcase ventilation valve, so you need to be aware and make sure that's fully working. So down here, guys, is the thermostat. Now the thermostat as well, which sits right down here, is another common problem. It's very easy to get to if you don't have the original airbox. You can just take this out and get to it. It sits right down here over this holding bracket. As you see the bolts there, you just take the bolts off of the thermostat. That bracket's bolted to the thermostat housing. You don't have to replace the thermostat housing. The thermostat is very, very cheap. It's about a tenner, and you can just replace that on its own without needing to replace anything else. It's a common part that usually fails, so it's something you have to be aware of and make sure you change. It can sometimes rip. It's like a little rubber with a thermostat in it, so be aware that if it ruptures, you can easily get to it and change it over. It's a cheap part and easy accessible. Now, if you're going to be taking off your supercharger and servicing it, I would advise doing a water pump as well, as the water pump is bolted to the supercharger, and it will be a perfect time to do that because you're going to be taking off the water pump anyway to get drain the fluid from the supercharger. The water pumps as well is about £30, and it's going to save you time in the long run, because when you put the car back, you don't want to strip it back down again. This is why once you get everything off, it's best to do everything all together. The parts are not expensive. I think the oil and everything on this car cost me about £250 all in to get everything I needed, and then I was given parts as well because the other companies were working alongside me. So as I said, it didn't actually cost me much money in the long run. You're also going to want to be aware of that the horns that sit down here, which I made in my previous video, they like to fail from water getting inside and dirt, and they end up failing, and it's something that's a common issue, that they suck up water and they end up failing, and then your horns don't end up working. Especially this one, as you'll see here, where the wiring has been all remade for it right here. So it's something you need to be aware of, and make sure that if you buy one, you check the horns on these, because they are a common problem that they like to get water sucked in because they face so low down, and then you'll be left without horns, and it's an MOT failure, especially in the UK. So it's something you need to check for and make sure that the horns are fully working and they haven't got water. They're not expensive to replace. You can usually replace it for about £20, but it's something that is still money, and it's still something that will have to be replaced if you come to find out that it hasn't been done. Also guys, I just want to point out as well that the 2002 models, that when they were first released on this car up to 2004, had a software glitch. They had a software problem which BMW rectified with a software update. The 2005, 2006 never had that problem. The last models of the R53 are the most reliable. They've got the better gearbox, the better engine, and also the better supercharger. As you guys know, the ones prior to that had a supercharger that was prone to overheating and prone to just going bang. The ones after that had a different kind of supercharger. It was a lot more robust and built for this car, and since then they've had no issues, and that's why a lot of people go for the 2005 and 2006 ones and try and avoid any before that, because they had a lot of issues with updates, with the programming files, with the supercharger. They had issues with everything regarding this car, but that's why I picked a 2006. Obviously I did my research before buying it. I fixed all this car up. I'm very pleased with the outcome of it, and like I say, I can't fault the car. It's probably been the best car I've ever driven. It's the most comfortable car, and you know what, it's something like I say, I'd rather keep over any kind of BM and just use it as a daily car or whenever I want to. I have no reason to sell it, but it's such an excellent car. I'd rather keep it and just be happy with it, because like I say, it's a faultless car, it drives faultless, and I'm good for 100k. As I said to you, be aware, most people will get rid of this car when it's touching 100k because they know that service is coming up and they don't want the headache of having to do it. So be aware of that, that if you are planning on going buying one, the majority of the time they sound cheap. Yes, these cars have come down a lot in price, usually 15 to 1600, but the reason that is because they're due that big service and people do not want to carry it out. So please be aware of that if you're going to buy one of them, that you will be forced to do that service. As I said, it's not a big job, it's very, very easy to do, and I advise anyone, if you're looking in the market to go and buy one of these, to go and buy one, because they're good cars and great all-rounders, very good at handling, and we are going to be doing a test drive video that you guys can check out as well after. So just make sure if you are looking to buy one, go and buy one, and don't be put off. They are very cheap maintenance and very fun to drive as well. Okay guys, so as you've just seen now, I've just gone over to what to look for when buying a Mini Cooper S R53. Now, as you guys know, I've gone through all the common problems on this car since I bought it, because the guy that owned it, obviously, and the previous owners didn't care about this car, so they just neglected it. They just cared about the looks and how it drives, and people have just been buying it for the power, hence the amount of owners. But I've overhauled everything now, and the car drives absolutely great. Like I said, it wouldn't be worth it for someone who's going to take it to a garage, because it's going to cost them about £600–700 for all that work, and that's any work. If you was to go and buy one with that kind of mileage, you're going to need that work done. It's going to be problems, and it's going to cost you. Is it going to be worth it to take it to a garage to have done? No, it's not. If you're going to do it yourself, it's worth it. If it's worth taking, it's going to cost you more than the car's actually worth. You can pick these up now for about £1,500–1,600, but that's because they all need work and people are frightened of them. People don't want to do them, and people just don't see the point in it. You can sell it for £1,600 with the problems, and there you go. Instead of spending that type of money to get it all repaired and gone, you're not going to ever get that money back. But overall, if you are willing to do it yourself, these will end up being a great car and are very, very fun to drive. Like I say, I enjoy this drive. I enjoy driving this a lot more than my PM, and I know it's surprising to say, but I do. It's just very nippy and it handles amazingly, and it's so comfortable. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, guys, and I hope this helps you get your new Mini Cooper S R53. This is BMW Mini Doctor here. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.